There's only one way to resolve the conflict in Iran right now, and I'm going to prove this to you. It is understandable that when people like me with decades of activism against the Islamic Republic come out and say that regime change is the only solution, for people to take that with skepticism because of the bias that we have against the Islamic Republic and the experience that we had with the Islamic Republic, I think is a justified bias, but it also makes sense from somebody listening to people like me to take that bias into account and to expect an objective analysis demonstrating that why regime change is necessary and how that could be done. It's quite understandable for why some people would want a more objective analysis demonstrating for why this is the solution and how that could be done. I'm going to make it very simple and demonstrate to you why this is the only solution, why the way that I'm going to explain to you in detail, but still simple, is the only way. And after I explain this to you, you let me know if you think I'm missing anything here, because to me, this is very clear. So let's step back a little bit. I'm going to move step by step and make every single step very easy and very demonstrable. And if you agree with every step, then you should agree with the conclusion, not just with regards to what needs to happen, but also how it can be done. Here's what we know. We know that the vast majority of the Iranian people want regime change. To be fair, many Iranians are active about it, but also many Iranian people are not active about it, even though that's what they would prefer. Scientifically collected data shows that the vast majority of the Iranian people don't want the Islamic Republic. If you agree with me, there's that. That is something easy to demonstrate and agree with. We also know that Israel prefers regime change in Iran. It's true that there are disagreements within Israel whether or not this is possible. So, for example, we recently just got reports that there are disagreements on this between the IDF and Mossad, with Mossad being more aggressive and interested in going for complete regime change, while IDF being somewhat more conservative about this. And historically, the IDF has been more conservative regarding what their reports suggest that is possible. Mossad has historically always been more aggressive. This can also be explained by the internal politics within Israel and also the historical experience and achievements that the IDF and Mossad have had. But on average, we know that Israel's politics, Israel's military, Israel's intelligence operations, and also the Israeli people are on average very much are in favor and eager to get rid of the Islamic Republic once and for all. That is also easily demonstrable. So there shouldn't be much argument over here. So let's go to the next step. When it comes to the United States, it gets more complicated. When it comes to the United States, we don't have this level of agreement. The society in the United States is a lot more divided on this topic, and that's why the politics is also a lot more divided on this. This is not about America as a whole on average being for regime change or for military operations. This is about the current administration. And when it comes to the Trump administration, then what we could claim here with certain degree of confidence is that the Trump administration's highest priority is to make sure that the Islamic Republic cannot enrich uranium and also gets rid of the enriched uranium that it already has. We know that. We don't have the same level of commitment to regime change when it comes to the Iranian people and when it comes to Israel, but we have a commitment to making sure the Islamic Republic cannot enrich uranium, and also the enriched uranium that they already have leaves Iran, the nuclear dust. So if you agree with every statement that has been made so far, we could move forward. If you don't, let me know in the comments what I'm missing so far. Then we go to the Islamic Republic. When it comes to the Islamic Republic, obviously their highest priority is to survive. There are major disagreements and internal fighting within the Islamic Republic regarding how to do that. We have the Beit Rahbari camp, the Office of the Supreme Leadership. We have the Ghalibaf and Pezeshkian camp. We have the IRGC camp. And we have the Paidari camp. And these are the main four factions. The infighting has escalated, but the disagreements are on the methodology. But the goal for all four is for the regime to survive. They also have different goals when it comes to their influence and their level of power. On that, they don't agree, and they are competing against each other. But all four of them are trying to make the Islamic Republic survive. So focusing on the Islamic Republic, survival at the end of the day comes down to the Islamic Republic's ability to suppress the Iranian people. Everything else at the end of the day comes to that ability. Because the Islamic Republic is not a normal regime. They're not going to stand down because of economic collapse. They're not going to give up power. They're not going to admit defeat. They're willing to do everything and anything imaginable with no red lines, absolutely zero red lines for what is required to do to survive. And for that end, they need power. And that power comes in the form of support from the pro-regime Iranian people, so people power, and economic power, mostly from the sale of oil and gas and petrochemical products. They also have many other industries that makes them money, but this is the main one. And then military power, especially, which is mainly focused within the IRGC. But all of that comes down to being able to suppress the Iranian people. You might think that the American attacks will be able to topple the regime. It won't. It will help. It will help weaken the regime to the point where the Iranian people could do an uprising and topple the regime. But none of these, no blockade, no targeted attacks, no assassinations, no amount of bombardment by itself will be able to do regime change in Iran, given the fact that we know the Israelis and the Americans are not going to do a mass ground operation in Iran similar to what the Americans did with Saddam. We know that's not going to happen. So if we want regime change, given that the Islamic Republic will not give up no matter how much the economy suffers, no matter how embarrassed it is internationally, no matter how many of the leaders are killed, it's not just going to bend the knee and give up power. So what is needed at the end of the day is to weaken the Islamic Republic with all of these tools that we mentioned for the Iranian people to eventually do an uprising. So all of these are useful, the blockade, the Israeli attacks, the American attacks, but only so that we could get the Islamic Republic to a point weak enough for the Iranian people to be able to push it over the edge. And the Islamic Republic understands that. The Islamic Republic fighting against the Americans and the Israelis and the blockade and everything that it's trying to do to increase its revenue, to increase its firepower, all of it is to be able to maintain enough power for it to be able to resist the Iranian people. It is fighting the Israelis. It is fighting the Americans. It is fighting the blockade. But at the end of the day, it comes down to doing all of that so that it could maintain enough economic, military, and people power to resist the Iranian people. When I say people power, I'm talking about the minority of the Iranian people who support the regime. It needs that base of support. And understanding this is key to be able to make sense of everything else that I'm going to say. At the end of the day, if the Islamic Republic thinks it could suppress the Iranian people against an uprising, it will be able to survive everything else. It will be able to survive all the American attacks, all the Israeli attacks, all the blockades, because they're not going to do a ground invasion. So all the Islamic Republic needs to figure out how to do is to suppress the Iranian people. If you go back to what the Americans want, it might seem very far off from what the Iranians want and what the Israelis want, but it actually makes them more aligned than what people think. The reason for that is one of the main sources of the Islamic Republic's ability to suppress the Iranian people is the base of support that it has inside Iran among regime supporters, right? So that means that even if the Americans only insist, which they're not, but if they only insist on getting the Islamic Republic to bend the knee and surrender when it comes to enriching uranium and also getting rid of its nuclear dust, even if you just get the nuclear dust, the 60% enriched uranium, the 440 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium in Iran, if you manage to get that out of Iran, but not just out of Iran to the Americans' controls, not to the Russians, we don't want it to go to Russia. If you get that out, that is already humiliating enough for the Islamic Republic. It will be such an obvious show of defeat that the Islamic Republic standing in front of its own supporters will be damaged very significantly. The position of the supreme leader, which is right now the main source of soft power, within the Islamic Republic, which is the main excuse for pro-regime people to continue supporting the Islamic Republic, will be fractured beyond repair. And it will be very difficult for the Islamic Republic to maintain control with now pro-regime people not supporting the Islamic Republic as well, especially given that a major way for the regime to stop an uprising by the anti-regime Iranians, the vast majority of the Iranians who are anti-regime, a major way to stop that is by leveraging the minority Iranians who are pro-regime. We already saw that in the more than 2 months of street protests by pro-regime Iranians to try to stop an uprising inside Iran. We saw that. We also see that among many regime fighters, a lot of the reason for their fighting is not just the money that they're making. For many of them, they also have to believe in the regime. Again, many of them are just doing it for money, but many of them do also need to believe in the regime. It is for this reason that I say that America getting what they want gets us so much closer to regime change, even if Americans don't insist on regime change. A victory when it comes to getting the nuclear dust out and also getting the Islamic Republic to agree on anything when it comes to ending their enrichment of uranium does such damage to their soft power that it will make an uprising a lot easier for the Iranian people. We have to remember that Mujtaba Khamenei has now an official statement attributed to him by the closest people to him, saying that there is no way that they're going to even discuss the enrichment of uranium and the nuclear dust with the Americans and agreeing on anything. That is official, out there, and known by the pro-regime people. Capitulating on that will damage the regime beyond repair and will get us so much closer to the regime falling than many people understand, because they don't understand how the Islamic Republic operates. If we go now focus back on the Americans and what they insist on and what they want, there's only 3 ways to achieve it. Let's focus on just one part of this. Let's focus on only getting the nuclear dust out, the 440 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. There's only 3 ways to do it, and 2 of them seem to me at least very unlikely. Let me know if I'm wrong here. One is to get the Islamic Republic to bend the knee, officially surrender, and cooperate with the Americans for them to come and get the nuclear dust out. Remember, the nuclear dust is under tons of rubble, deep underground. After Operation Midnight Hammer against Natanz, Fordow, and the enrichment facilities in Isfahan, the centrifuges and the enriched uranium were very deep underground, and with that bombardment, they're now buried under so much rubble that is not just very difficult to get to, but according to President Trump, impossible to get to for any country other than China and the United States. The Islamic Republic cannot even get the stuff out to give it to the United States, so the United States has to come into Iran and get that out. Going back to method number 1 is for the Islamic Republic to surrender and allow the Americans and cooperate with them to come into Iran and get it out. That's number 1. For number 2 is for the Americans to do a very complicated, very military operation and go to these sites while still aggressively being at war with the Islamic Republic, while the Islamic Republic is attacking you, and dig out the nuclear dust and do the most complicated military and engineering operations that has been done in history. This has never been done. Remember, when the Americans go do special operations inside Iran, they do it overnight, like in the darkness, because they have the advantage in the darkness against their enemy. They have equipment that they can see and the enemy can't see. This operation will take so long, and the American soldiers and engineers that only America has, and it only has a few of them that are capable of doing something like this, they will have to stay there for a very long time, because remember, America is not going to do a ground invasion. This is a special operations in only parts of Iran without having a huge military backing you up on the ground there and defending against drones and missiles. Remember when Americans invaded Iraq and toppled Saddam, we had roadside bombs. Now we have roadside bombs that fly. We have drone technology, and you have to protect the American soldiers and the engineers doing this most complicated military operation while there's drones coming at them for an extended period of time and going through so many days, like during daytime. If you actually study the engineering operation required for doing something like this, it's absolutely insane. We already discussed that in our discussion community, and that's recorded, so you could go watch that. Just know that you're putting American soldiers and engineers at so much risk for an operation that is very hard to succeed in. So that's number two, going in and getting the enriched uranium while you're still at war with the Islamic Republic. And then we have number three, which is regime change. And if you do regime change, and then you have the transitional government under the leadership of Prince Reza Pahlavi, then they will definitely cooperate with you to get all of this stuff out, so you don't have to worry anymore. So these are the three options: getting the Islamic Republic to surrender and cooperate with you, getting it out while still at war with the Islamic Republic, doing regime change, and getting it out with the cooperation of the transitional government. Number one seems very unlikely because of what I told you. We already have the official statement by Mujtaba Khamenei that they're not going to give this up, that they're not even going to negotiate about it. I think they lied. They are negotiating about it. But giving the enriched uranium up, that level of humiliation and surrender to the Americans is something that the Islamic Republic can't really tolerate. So that seems unlikely. Not impossible, but very unlikely. The second option, going out and taking it while at war with the Islamic Republic, the level of risk and complications that if I go over this video will become so much longer, but everything that I studied shows that this seems like a very unlikely option. Again, not impossible, but unlikely. Very unlikely. Let me know if you disagree with me. That means that if the Americans really keep insisting on getting the enriched uranium out, which seems like they will, that means that the only option is regime change. The third option. Let me know if I'm missing anything here, because to me, this is like basic math. As long as the Islamic Republic is not willing to give up the nuclear dust, and as long as the Americans insist on getting the nuclear dust, and as long as these are the only three ways to get it, and the first two options being close to impossible to do, then the Americans need to do regime change. And the only way to do regime change is to empower the Iranian people to be successful with their uprising. I thought in this video I was able to also do this objective analysis to show you what is the only way to empower the Iranian people. I was going to go over showing you the numbers for what the Islamic Republic requires to suppress the Iranian people, and how that calculation changes in different scenarios. I'm talking about number of people, armed people required to suppress the Iranian people, the money that it takes to be able to suppress the Iranian people, and how that calculation changes given that the Islamic Republic has no red lines in regards to what it's able and willing to do, and how that calculation changes if you arm the Iranian people. I was going to go through that as well, step by step in the same way that I just did right now, showing you that regime change is the only option. But because this video is getting long, I'll do that in the next video. Let me know if this way of thinking about things and basically categorizing things and thinking about it step by step and checking every claim and seeing if we agree with it before we move to the next part. Let me know if this helps you understand the conclusions a little bit better, and also if you disagree with anything I just said. By the way, I could go and discuss this in a lot more detail than I just did here. If you want to do that with me, come and join our discussion group. We discuss this and many other political related topics, not just Iran, but politics generally around the world. If you are interested in having deep, detailed, nuanced discussions about all things political related globally, come join our discussion community. I'm there almost every day, but there's so many other interesting people there as well that are interested in these topics. So it's a really good place to meet people and have these discussions with. The link to the discussion group is in the description. It's in the bio. It's also on the QR code somewhere here on the screen. I think it's over here. And if you scan that, it will take you to the discussion group. Come there and talk to us. Let me know in the comment section if this was helpful. Comments like that really motivate me to make more videos like this. My name is Armin Navabi. I'm Israel Chai. Long live America. Javid Shah. Payande Iran.